thanks for coming back.
My pleasure.
Okay, so the question on the table is, if somebody offered you $20 million to stay home, why would you insist on coming back and creating a circus?
Well, the circus, I don't know why he created it. I don't know why, if he didn't want to be retired, why he ever announced that in such an adamant, over-the-top way with the tears and everything. But you asked me a question, $20 million for me? You know, if you love the game and you really want to play the game, it's really not about money. I mean, I know that's what everyone sees, the dollars and cents, but the bottom line is something in your heart and you really want to do it. He wants to play.
Does he want to play for the Green Bay Packers, or does he just want to play? Has he changed his mind on retirement?
I think he never wanted to play for anybody else but the Green Bay Packers. But right now, I don't think, if they're going to have an open competition, I don't really think it's fair to Aaron Rodgers. Do I think he's going to stay with the Packers? I don't think so.
Let's find out what John has to say. John, I know you've been watching this story closely as our sports correspondent on Out of Bounds. Any idea what's going to be said at that press conference coming up in about 25 minutes?
None. I really have no idea. First of all, CNA's offered me $10 just to leave for the rest of the night, and I'm taking that. You know, Lynn, I think going back to your original question, and we might get some answers with this press conference, I think Brett just has an addictive personality, and Carlos knows this a lot better than I do, certainly. But, you know, he can't stay away from the game, and it's obvious to me that he can't get the game out of his system, even if he knows that his future should be back home in Mississippi, taking care of his family with his wife, Deanna, and just leaving the game and not putting his body through any more punishment, but he just can't seem to get away. And whether it's addiction, maybe it is.
Well, I tell you what, I could get addicted to $20 million pretty quickly.
But remember, this is Brett Favre. He's got a lot of money, so $20 million to Brett Favre it's still a lot, but it's not quite as much as it would be to, you know, you and I.
Oh, you can say that again. Jim, tell me what they are bubbling about on the sportsbubbler.com.
Well, fans across the state of Wisconsin are split probably about 60-40. 60% are dying to see him back. 40% want to see him go. You know, you talk about the money, $20 million over 10 years is a lot of money, but he stands to make a lot more than that by playing the next 3 years. So, as the panelist said before, I don't think it's about the money. I think he's addicted to the game. He wants to compete. He wants to come back.
All right. Well, having said that, Jim, then why did he retire? Why didn't he just put that announcement off? Why the teary press conference, the cover of Sports Illustrated, the affirmation to ESPN.com over and over and over? This is it. I am done. Why change your mind 3 months later?
Well, you know, that's one thing that I've always said is any team shouldn't accept a retirement that soon after the season because everybody's still emotional. You know, he threw an interception that cost them a shot at the Super Bowl. He was pretty distraught over that. They said they wanted a decision from him, and at that time he couldn't decide one way or another, so he decided that retiring was his best option. A lot of people close to the situation, close to Brett Favre, really felt that he would come back around and change his mind. But then again, a lot of us change our minds every day. It just doesn't affect an entire franchise.
Well, it's not only affecting the franchise. People around the league, Gerald, are watching this. They are, whether they're a Green Bay Packer fan or not, they want to see how this situation is resolved. You deal with these guys all the time. Can you take us inside his mind, give us some insight as to perhaps how he's making these decisions and why?
Well, Lynn, you asked a question about, why change your mind? And there is an old adage, and Carlos can attest to this better than I can. It's sort of once a player, always a player.
We will certainly go to the U.S. Supreme Court. So it's a very live and hot issue as we sit here and discuss this case tonight.
The impact of this new sentencing hearing, though, immediately, it gives you an opportunity to seek a new trial. It also gives Mumia Abu-Jamal the opportunity to face a life sentence. Is that good news as far as he is concerned, or does he want the opportunity to clear his name, as he says?
Well, let me put it this way. The day of the decision, last Thursday, by the U.S. Court of Appeals, Mumia and I talked twice. We talked twice on Friday, and we'll be talking tomorrow, and we'll be meeting in a few days. And his reaction was, well, that's good, because maybe it will help other people that we've turned back the death penalty in this case. But so there is some victory there, but we're not happy with that because we want an entirely new trial. So it's a mixed reaction. Of course, you'd have to be a fool to say that having the death penalty overturned is not at least a good step, but it's not the step we want, because I know that he's not guilty of murder. So I need to get this case before a jury on that question.
Robert, how do you know that he is not guilty of first-degree murder? He was convicted in 1982, and that conviction, I have to point out for our viewers, has been upheld through 2008, despite this recent court decision saying that he deserves a new sentencing hearing.
If I might make a comment, Mr. Smirkonish, who was on, who's very eloquent, but he made some misstatements, and one of the things he said that was wrong, and I was listening to a very poor audio feed, was that the majority, the 2-to-1 vote in this case, the majority, the two judges upheld that he did it. That's are in essence that is not what the court held. All the court held was that they would not grant a new trial. This court did not retry the case. It did not decide the issue of guilt or innocence. That's not even on the plate. It's whether or not there have been violations under the U.S. Constitution that would mandate a new trial. And going back to the 1982 trial there in Philadelphia, the case. And I've seen some bad cases, and I've walked a lot of people out of courts free in some horrendous cases, particularly people who are African American. But I've never seen a case, with all the cases I used to try many years ago in the South, murder cases, I've never seen a case where so much went wrong as in the case of Mumia Abu-Jamal.
Has he told you, Mr. Bryan, that he did not commit this murder?
I will not comment on what my client said. If we can get, that's conversations between confidential conversations between an attorney and client, just like somebody speaking to their priest or their doctor. But I will tell you this, that the jury in 1982 only heard and saw half the facts. Mr. Abu-Jamal did not have the funds for a good defense. There was virtually no investigation. He wasn't able to afford experts in areas like ballistics and pathology.
Okay.
And so the jury only saw one side. I can assure you that if we get a new trial, I think everybody will be surprised at what really happened.
All right.
And
I want to bring
being
Michael...
able to produce that, have a forum to produce that, I feel, in my experience, knock on wood, but would result in us being able to free Mr. Abu-Jamal.
We'll give our viewers an opportunity to weigh in on that in just a moment, but I do want to bring Michael Cord into the discussion because I'd like you to explain for our viewers, if you will, the concept of Mumia being held as a political prisoner. So many times people are surprised that he has such support, not just here in the United States, but worldwide. Many people consider him a political prisoner. Can you explain why?
Well, certainly, Mumia is obviously not just speaking to save himself, but he's actually speaking to save most people in that same situation. In fact, rarely, if ever, do you hear Mumia talking about his own plight.
My favorite's Dumb and Dumber, I must have to agree.
You know, it's funny, I was thinking that appealed to men, but it sounds like the ladies like it as well.
Yeah, it was a good movie, definitely a good movie.
Well,
All right, Akira, thanks so much for your time. We appreciate the call.
Thank you, you too.
Sure thing. Now, you know, people have been asking me when they heard that you were going to be on the show if I had a favorite film, and like I said, there were, you know, so many from which to choose, but for me, a very powerful role that you played was earlier in your career, and that was of Flap Horton in terms of endearment. I'm telling you, Shirley MacLaine and my mother are very much alike. My mother was the type that would go in and shake the baby to make sure that she was still breathing. Nice. So there was just something about that film that when I was a young woman who was about the same age as the Deborah Winger character, it really just was very poignant and powerful. But what kind of role was he, or what kind of character was he? Kind of a sad sack?
Just, you know, feckless and kind of helpless.
Now, there's a word you don't hear every day.
No,
Let's use that in a sentence, folks.
Shall we?
Feckless.
He was just outmatched. Flap Horton was simply outmatched. He wasn't, it wasn't that he was weak, though that's certainly how he ended up, but he just, in Shirley's character and even Emma, Deborah Winger's character, it was like a tag team. You know, it was 2 against 1, and he didn't have a prayer. And I think, you know, and he was a bit, you know, there was an ego, there was a, you know, not enough attention being paid to him, and so he ended up, you know, falling in love with that student or grad student, whatever she was, yeah. And next thing you know, now he's in even bigger trouble with the tag team. So it really, you know, it was a great role, a great learning experience to be around all those megastars, and I was real lucky to be in it.
All right. Well, it is one of my all-time favorites, although there's a whole lot of them. I loved you in a lot of different movies, The Butcher's Wife.